Pete Rose was one of the greatest baseball hitters of all time, playing for the Cincinnati Reds. On November 11, 1986, Pete Rose unofficially retired as a player. Rose finished his career with a number of Major League and National League records that have lasted for many years. Rose, always proud of his ability to hit .300 or better in 15 of his 24 playing seasons, had a lifetime .303 batting average. Rose managed the Reds from August 15, 1984 to August 24, 1989, with a 426 to 388 record. During his 4 full seasons at the helm, the Reds posted 4 second-place finishes in the NL West Division. His 426 managerial wins ranks 5th in Reds history. One thing that followed him as he managed the Reds were the facts that were slowly coming to the surface about him gambling on the game of baseball. After reports surfaced that he had bet on baseball, Rose was questioned in February 1989 by outgoing Commissioner Peter Ueberroth and his replacement Bart Giamatti. Rose denied the allegations and Ueberroth dropped the investigation. However, 3 days after Giamatti became commissioner, lawyer John M. Dowd was retained to investigate these charges against Rose. Sports Illustrated gave the public their first detailed report of the allegations that Rose had placed bets on baseball games on March 21, 1989, in the cover story of the issue dated April 3, 1989. On August 24, 1989, Rose voluntarily accepted a permanent place on baseball's ineligible list. Rose accepted that there was a factual reason for the ban. In return, Major League Baseball agreed to make no formal finding with regard to the gambling accusations. According to baseball's rules, Rose could apply for reinstatement in 1 year, but Bart Giamatti said, "There's absolutely no deal for reinstatement. That is exactly what we did not agree to in terms of a fixed number of years." Those critical of Rose's behavior, including Ohio's own Hall of Fame baseball reporter Hal McCoy, have observed that the major problem with Rose betting on baseball, particularly the Reds, is that as manager he could control games, make decisions that could enhance his chances of winning his bets, thus jeopardizing the integrity of the game. The Major League Baseball rule that Rose violates prohibits any bet on a game that bettor is involved in, making no distinction between betting for or against one's team. The rule states, "Any player, umpire, club, or league official or employee who shall bet any sum whatsoever upon any baseball game in connection with which the bettor has the duty to perform shall be declared permanently ineligible." Rose is currently still banned for life from baseball. The report to the Commissioner of Baseball of an independent investigation into the illegal use of steroids and other performance-enhancing substances by players in Major League Baseball, informally known as the Mitchell Report, is the result of former Democratic United States Senator from Maine George J. Mitchell's 21-month investigation into the use of anabolic steroids and human growth hormone in Major League Baseball. The 409-page paper, released on December 13, 2007, covers the history of the use of illegal performance-enhancing substances by players and the effectiveness of the MLB Joint Drug Prevention and Treatment Program. The report also advances certain recommendations regarding the handling of past illegal drug use and future prevention practices. In addition, the report names 89 MLB players who are alleged to have used steroids or other performance-enhancing drugs. The report describes motivations for its preparation, including health effects of steroids, legal issues, fair play, and reports that baseball players acted as role models for child athletes. For example, after news coverage in August 1998 that Mark McGwire had used the then illegal androstenedione, a steroid precursor, sales of the supplement increased over 1,000%, and the National Institute on Drug Abuse reported that 8% of male high school senior athletes had used the same drug in 2001. Mitchell reported that during the random testing in 2003, 5 to 7% of players tested positive for steroid use. Players on the 40-man roster of Major League Baseball teams were exempt from testing until 2004. One player is quoted, "40-man roster guys already have all the Major League club advantages, and then they still could use steroids. It was not a level playing field." According to the report, after mandatory random testing began in 2004, HGH became the substance of choice among players, as it was not then detectable in tests. Also, it was noted that at least one player from each of the 30 Major League Baseball teams was involved in the alleged violations. In all, 89 former and current MLB players are named in the report. Among those implicated were several well-known players such as Roger Clemens, Andy Pettitte, Miguel Tejada, and Eric Gagne. Many of them are connected through a relatively small social network centering around Kirk Radomski. Since the release of the Mitchell Report, the MLB has enacted a three-strike drug policy. The first offense is an 80-game suspension, the second offense is a 162-game suspension, and the third offense is a lifetime ban.
Another instance of deviance in sport will include the tragedy of Monica Seles. Seles was the top women's player heading into 1993, having won the French Open 3 consecutive years and both the US Open and Australia Open in consecutive years. In January 1993, Seles defeated Graf in the final of the Australian Open, which to date was her third win in 4 Grand Slam finals against Graf. She then won the Virginia Slims of Chicago over Martina Navratilova in 3 sets. This was the last title that Seles won before the attack in Hamburg, Germany. On April 30th, during a quarterfinal match with Magdalena Malieva in Hamburg, in which Seles was leading 6-4, 4-3, Gunter Parch, an obsessed fan of Steffi Graf, ran from the middle of the crowd to the edge of the crowd during a break between games and stabbed Seles in the back with a boning knife to the depth of 1.5 centimeters, about 0.59 inches. She was quickly rushed to the hospital. Although her physical injuries took only a few weeks to heal, she did not return to competitive tennis for more than 2 years. Initially, there was speculation that the attack may have been politically motivated because of Seles' Serbian roots. She was also known to have received death threats in relation to the ongoing conflict in her native Yugoslavia. However, German authorities were quick to rule this out, describing her attacker as confused and possibly mentally disturbed. Parsh was charged following the incident, but was not jailed because he was found to be psychologically abnormal, and was instead sentenced to 2 years probation and psychological treatment. The incident prompted a significant increase in the level of security at tour events at the French Open, held less than a month later after the attack. The trophy presentation ceremony took place on the court rather than in the stands among spectators, as it had been done previously. At that year's Wimbledon, the players' seats were positioned with their backs to the umpire's chair rather than the spectators. Seles, however, disputed the effectiveness of these measures. She was quoted in 2011 saying, "From the time I was stabbed, I think the security hasn't changed." Seles vowed to never play tennis in Germany again, disenchanted by the German legal system. What people seem to be forgetting is that this man stabbed me intentionally and he did not serve any sort of punishment for it. I would not feel comfortable going back. I don't foresee that happening. Gabriela Sabatini was the only player on the women's tour who abstained from voting against Seles having her ranking preserved after the attack. All the other players voted that Seles should lose her ranking. Young Elders, a band from Melbourne, Australia, sent their song called Fly Monica Fly to Seles while she was recuperating from the 1993 stabbing incident. She later said that the song provided inspiration to her at the time, and subsequently met the band, who later changed their name to the Monicas, following their victory at the Australian Open in 1996. The stabbing incident was the subject to Dan Burns' 1998 tribute to Seles, Monica. Additionally, Detroit dream pop band Majesty Crush paid tribute to Seles from the 1993 album Love 15. Hugh Laurie wrote a parody song about the motivations of the attacker. With 8 Grand Slam titles, before her 20th birthday, December 12, 1993, Seles holds the record for the most Grand Slam singles titles won as a teenager in the Open era. Shortly after her retirement, Sports Illustrated writer John Wortham summed up her later career. Yet transformed from a champion to tragedienne, Seles became far more popular than she was while winning all those titles. It became impossible to root against her, at first out of sympathy, then because she revealed to herself to be so thoroughly thoughtful, graceful, and dignified. When she quietly announced her retirement last week, at age 34, she exited as perhaps the most adored figure in sports history. As happy endings go, one could do worse.